Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation on hard copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I am Terry Ikubi. On Tuesday this week, the Nigerian Medical Association Kogi chapter raised an alarm over the situation of testing for the new coronavirus in Kogi State. The chairman of the chapter, Dr. Zubair Kabiru, told journalists that members of the Association of Resident Doctors in the state have become agitated as their members are among the most exposed healthcare workers to patients with suspected cases of COVID-19 in the hospital settings. And according to him, a number of suspected cases had been attended to at the Federal Medical Center, Lokoja, and members of the Association of Resident Doctors are among the first to attend to these patients, and as such, they might just be exposed to the highly contagious COVID-19. The interview by Dr. Zubair was given before the NCDC confirmed 2 new cases of the coronavirus in Kogi State, and this was how the Kogi State government reacted to the NCDC's declaration.
As a state government, we are completely rejecting such declarations because they do not even conform to the protocol set by the NCDC itself. When you look at the history of the cases they declared, the patient was admitted at the Federal Medical Center in Lokoja for symptoms that are far from COVID-19 symptoms, but they were not attended to there. And the next thing was to bring them to the National Hospital in Abuja, and within a few hours they were tested, and under 24 hours the man was declared COVID-19 positive.
Well, the NCDC, however, has said its declaration should brew no controversy.
A patient that was referred from the Federal Medical Center to the National Hospital, this is a normal referral pathway when you have a case. The physicians in the National Hospital, I don't have any influence over the work that they do. They suspected COVID-19 based on the clinical symptoms of the patient. Did it ask for a test? The test came out positive. The individual lives in Kogi State. Everybody's in what we do in public health. Your public health response is based on where you live, because that's where your contacts are. So this is not controversial in any way. Standard practice was followed. Once the results came out, the state epidemiologist was informed that he has to do contact tracing around this patient.
Well, this situation has brought to the fore conversations around our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, especially because of the increasing number of cases and fatalities recorded so far. So questions like, are we really on track with the measures we've taken to handle this pandemic? Can we justify the lockdown measures taken by government when we consider that, though we're now in the phase of community infections, this is when we're considering easing lockdowns? And what do the mortality figures recorded in this pandemic tell us? Could states like Kogi and Cross River State have a point in terms of the handling of the virus relative to how the rest of the country has reacted to it? Well, tonight we speak with the president of the Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Francis Faduyile, on these matters and more. Doctor, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much. My pleasure being here.
And it is indeed an honor to have you grace us with your presence on your final day of your stay as president of the NMA.
It's my pleasure.
And what a time to be president of the NMA.
Yeah, it's really a very interesting period, highly challenging, and we have to respond appropriately to the pandemic that had come to the shores of our country.
We'll talk about your time as NMA president, but first you heard and saw my introduction, and you've also followed the controversies that have trailed the Kogi and NCDC issue as far as COVID-19 is concerned. What was your initial reaction?
The initial reaction of Nigerian Medical Association on this is just to confirm our initial thought. Our thought has been that if you do not test, there is no way you can diagnose. And if Kogi State government had consistently debarred the health professionals within those states to get tested, we are just living in fool's paradise, thinking that there are no COVID-19 positive patients in Kogi State. If Kogi State has 11 states that are bordering it, and I can tell you every of those states have got 1 or 2 cases of COVID-19. then it's time to reasoning. What is Kogi doing differently? Have you been manning the border with all form of things that you are not allowing people to move around? And I can tell you for a fact, our members had constantly been under intense fear because the government had decided to openly come out that they should and they cannot have those tests done. And it is based on his belief that those tests, if it is done, that it will come positive. Either the person is COVID-19 positive or not. And that is a false belief. And we have stated severally, because our members have told us that they have had cases in which the symptoms looks very close like COVID-19. Kogi State, you must also know, is another town that you have a lot of people passing through in terms of road transportation. So they have had series of people going back and forth, staying within the state, who had presented with such cases. But at all times, they have blocked them from getting the test done in those states. So I can tell you, it's not very unlikely that we have not had many cases of COVID-19 within Kogi State, but it is because the government of the day has refused them to be tested appropriately.
We'll talk about that shortly, but Kogi State government has said that it's handling the COVID-19 pandemic the way it believes is best. It's also mentioned how it's following the lay-down procedures. And if you look at how the NCDC reacted to that and the Kogi State countered that, there seems to be a problem in the procedures employed in this case. As far as we understand that the NCDC is supposed to send out the state health teams are supposed to send out samples to the Kogi State, to the NCDC. That didn't happen, and that's what the Kogi State government is banking on.
Well, I think what Kogi State government is trying to do is trying to have its own policy. And I can tell you, in science world, you cannot be isolated. Science is about being able to reproduce whatever results that you have. Science is not done by your will, by your belief. Science is not belief, it's practical, it's theory. So what the world knows about COVID-19 is you get tested. There are standard procedures you have to pass through, you have to get through. And you cannot do it in a hidden area. It's a thing that should be laid bare, that everybody should see. Okay? But what we are seeing with Kogi State government is that they said they have some machines, they have some equipment, they are doing it by themselves, they are bringing out results by themselves.
They also mentioned the antigen test.
Look, either antigen test or antibodies test, whichever one that we are taking is not going to be within Kogi State alone. It's not going to be within that area that you cannot reproduce it, okay? And that is science. If I am positive, if you want to confirm it, I go to Lagos, I go anywhere, you test me, and you see that it is positive.
But then you know that in the United States, even though the World Health Organization has not granted approval for antigen tests, the United States FDA has granted approval for them to carry out antigen tests, regardless of the fact that it is not entirely 100% correct, accurate.
Well, I think we are talking about antibodies test, because that is the one that is the rapid testing kits.
The antigen test, actually.
Well, sincerely, if they are doing antigen test is actually the virus. What we are doing here is molecular testing, where we are checking the genome of the virus. And both of them, if it is the molecular testing that we are doing, those ones give a very high reliability, and the sensitivity is very high. And that is what we are using. If anyone is doing antibodies tests have been found not to be as accurate, not to be as reliable, not to be as sensitive as the molecular testing that we are talking about. We, as Nigerian Medical Association, has advocated that Nigerian government and NCDC should, as a short-term measure, as a preliminary measure, should be able to allow the antibodies test to be done so that we can have mass testing. That is the one that is used for the rapid testing kits, which we believe that it should be there. Unfortunately, they have not brought that. But if Kogi State is bringing a test kit, a testing methodology that is bringing out, it should be allowed to have a peer review. In science, you cannot do something within your room and come out and you expect everybody to take a hook, line, and sinker. You must be able to test it somewhere. If we have cases and you are saying you have told us that they are negative, the next thing is subject those people to another test. But that is what Kogi State government is not doing. And that is what Kogi State has remained believing, that it is an island on itself, where we have movement of people, where we have series of presentation and symptoms of patients who have such COVID-like symptoms. Unfortunately, those who are at risk are the doctors, the nurses, the medical and health workers. And I think it calls for concern for all Nigerians to see that we'll be able to prevail and get things done. We will be very happy if Kogi State is actually free of COVID-19. It is an area of research that we want to see what is happening within Kogi State.
How's the NMA handling the cries from the Kogi State chapter of the NMA and the resident doctors? Because we've had reports from them saying that their lives are in danger because of they suspect that they're getting contact, they are in contact with most of these COVID-19 infected persons.
I must tell you, one of the major problems we have in that regard is the position of our constitution in terms of health. The health is in the concurrent list, where the federal government, the state government, and the local government have their own different levels of interaction in health. So the health of any state is within the purview of the state government. So it is very difficult for federal government to come into the state and start controlling the health system in that place. So in as much as many of our members are exposed, in as much as many of our members have interest in getting this test done, the fact that the government of Kogi State has actually stopped them from doing those tests means that they are incapacitated.
We're almost out of time now, but I think it is right for us to point out the dangers, if any, of this rift between both the Kogi State government and the NCDC. And then you talk about them trying to operate as an island. You've asked the federal government to call the Kogi State governor to order on this issue. What are the dangers that you foresee if this doesn't go down well?
Well, you should also always know that the weakest link in a chain is the strength of a chain is at its weakest link. If we have not been able to control what is happening in Kogi State, then Nigeria will not be able to control COVID-19. You see, if Kogi State is left not to be part of the general mitigating factors that we are doing in the in Nigerian context, it can always be a source of infection to all other parts. So it is on this basis that we want the government to do the needful so that we can clear this COVID-19 out of Nigeria once and for all. Otherwise, we'll have residual infection within the state. We'll have a lot of death within the state. We have a lot of people getting infected and moving at those states, reinfecting people. So we needed to stop it. And if you realize, COVID-19 started in Wuhan, China, and it was because they allowed people to escape from Wuhan, China, that made the whole world vulnerable, that everybody in the world is having a fear of contracting COVID-19. The same can be said if we do not wall off and get treated, get those people within Kogi State, if we have infection and it is left to continue transmission.
Are you up to date with your people in Kogi State as to whether or not they have the personal protective equipment?
It goes beyond personal protective equipment, because I can tell you...
Because they are going to be, the way things stand, they will still be in contact with suspected cases.
I can tell you the most important thing is for you to know who you are treating. There's no amount of personal protective equipment that you put on if you don't know the status of that patient. There are different methods of treating or managing patients that are highly contagious.
Dr. Fadu, let's take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll talk some more. We'll also get your reactions on the Chinese medical experts, which you initially condemned. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy with Dr. Francis Faduyile. He's the president of the Nigerian Medical Association. The conversation is on the issues arising from the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. And here's what the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 had to say about possible fatalities in the days ahead.
The Presidential Task Force has received rather sadly reports of continued refusal by medical institutions to receive and treat patients for fear of COVID-19. This has resulted in several unfortunate and unavoidable fatalities. Statistics have shown that there is a drastic drop in the percentage of attention being paid to other ailments not related to COVID-19.
Dr. Faduyile, you just heard that. There are fears now that we could have an increased number of deaths from refusal of medical professionals to attend to cases for fear of COVID-19. What's the orientation among medical professionals and how's the NMA handling this?
Well, I want to disagree with you for the word use of refusal. Doctors, other health workers are sitting at their duty posts to take care of patients.
We have heard reports.
Yes.
We have heard reports of people going to hospitals and they've been refused treatment because of fear of COVID-19. Is this something you want to outrightly deny, or is the NMA planning to deal with it?
The truth about it is that every patient is a potential COVID-19 positive patient. And there are some things you must provide for the doctors or the health workers to be able to protect themselves from getting infected.
So that's why I asked you, what's the orientation? Have those things been provided?
We have consistently told the government to ensure the provision of personal protective equipment.
So those things have not been provided?
If you don't have, it will be difficult for the health workers to see a patient.
You're not answering the question.
We have had so many.
Do we have, or has the government provided?
They have not provided enough personal protective equipment for health workers to use. So it is not a fault of refusal. It is inadequate provision of PPEs. I can tell you for a fact, most health workers, they stay in their home. If they get contracted, they go back to their home. They can infect their family, infect their aged patient parents. So it is important for the government to do the needful. They do their part and the health workers will do his part. And there's no health worker that will be callous enough to see a patient that needed attention and will not take care of that. I can also tell you, if I have a patient who has a road traffic accident and I don't have gloves, do you expect health workers to use bare hand to start taking care of those patients? It is difficult.
Did you follow the distribution of personal protective equipment that were from the PTF, those equipment that were donated by JACMA?
Nobody follows anything. They know how they distribute it. We all see what were sent to the different hospitals, and many of the places there are no enough PPE in place. And we have advised the government that this is the time to look inward. Let our local manufacturers start putting up and getting local supply of PPE, because we cannot entirely depend on importation. Outside this country, outside where we are expecting them to import, they are also looking for this PPE because the whole world is affected by this COVID-19.
Dr. Faduyile, let's go to something else now, which at the beginning was a big deal. When the federal government announced that some Chinese health professionals would be coming into the country to assist us in the fight against COVID-19, the NMA quickly reacted with a press release condemning that move. Now, one of your reasons was that the NMA was being subjected to the ignominy of not being carried along in arriving at such a decision. How was that resolved, or was it even resolved?
Well, I think the event that unfolded in weeks after, will have given us a hint of what has happened. After some few weeks, the government said that they are not their guests, that they are private, they are workers of the CCECC, which is very unfortunate. Ab initio, we have suspected that those people are not coming to do what they are saying that they are coming for. And that is why we came out. If we are doing our work, we are taking care of Nigeria, and we are doing very well, where do you think that this set of people want to work? They say they want to share their idea. Yes, in this world of internet technology, we can always do that, interact. all over the world. Why must they be here physically? They said they are for research, they are for this, they are for that. But 6 weeks down the line, they say they don't know anything about them. They are not our guests. They don't know what they are doing. They don't even know what is happening. And I think it calls for concern for Nigeria to ask from the government, why have you taken us for a ride? Those group of people have not come to do anything that they have claimed that they have come to do here. And that is why NMA came out strongly and said, look, we are doing well. We have been applauded internationally for how we have played our part in the containment of Ebola. We are one of the finest all over the world. So why are you bringing that in?
Has the NMA been carried along properly through this whole process of fighting this pandemic?
Well, I can tell you we have different levels. We have doctors who are working with the PTF. Yes, they are also NMA member. But NMA as an association has been given very remote interaction in what they are doing. And that is why we are having this disconnect between the policies and the execution. The executive, those who are executing it at the field are those people who are doctors, nurses, pharmacists, lab scientists, and others who are there, who should be giving them a feedback. But I think they have their own way of doing things. Well, we are giving our own policy advice, and we are giving our own support base on how far we can go.
As president of the NMA, you will agree with me that COVID-19 has exposed a huge gaping hole in terms of how our health institutions are crafted. Going forward, what are the lessons that you think we've learned, and what kind of amends do you think that we should make?
I doubt if we have had much lesson that we are getting, because this is the time you have to engage more of the stakeholders. That engagement is not seen. We are not having active engagement, and this is the time that we needed more funding into health. And the fundings that we are seeing in health are made to build things that are not improving the health facility in place. These are stopgap buildings, equipment that are bringing up. So we must be able to sit down, even in this situation that we cannot function properly, to see how we can improve the health facilities in Nigeria, to see how we can improve the equipment in our hospital, to see how we can put our hospitals in good use. But I can tell you what we are seeing are far from it. We are building things, makeshift buildings everywhere, which cannot last, which cannot be introduced or injected into the already weak system in Nigeria. And we also need to look deeper to see that we have more community interest, participation in health. These are things that we are not seeing. And these are the reasons why you have different tunes outside in the community about COVID-19.
Dr. Faduyele Francis, I thank you so much for finding time to come speak with us on Hard Copy, and we wish you well as you bow out as NMA president.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very well. Well, that's Hard Copy. Thanks for watching. Send feedback to the email address and social media handles on your screen. Oh, and we've introduced a podcast. Go to channelstv.com/podcasts to enjoy the service, especially if you want to save data or you're commuting and are unable to watch the program. Once again, it's channelstv.com/podcasts. I'm Terry Ikumi. Good night.